Hi, I'm Grady Lane in the CapeCod.com News Center, joined today by Pan Mass Challenge founder and executive director Billy Starr. And I wanted to ask him a little bit more about how things are going for this year. We have the Pan Mass Challenge taking place this weekend, August 3rd and August 4th. It's going to have over 6,000 riders and over 3,000 volunteers raising money, as well as a new recent milestone just crossed. So, Billy, do you mind telling us a little bit more about what the Pan Mass Challenge is for people who aren't familiar, and a little bit more about that new record you guys broke recently, too?
All right. Well, the Pan Mass Challenge is the nation's original bike-a-thon. Really the first of the sort of the a-thon movement of run, walk, swim, bike for any good cause under the sun. And ours is funding money for Dana-Farber Cancer Research Institute in Boston. I started the PMC in 1980, having lost my mother, uncle, and cousin to cancer. And we have always ridden to Provincetown through the entire Cape on our Sunday ride since 1980, but it has grown to now be 16 routes through 47 towns and 370 miles of infrastructure. But 70% of all of the riders do ride on Cape Cod, starting as early as 5 a.m. in the morning and going to 2 finish lines in Provincetown. So it's a big event. We get comprehensive police support, and the citizens of Cape Cod, as well as the tourists, as much as they know at this point, tend to be pretty supportive now, different than almost any other day that you might ride a bicycle. But here we are on the first full weekend of August, and that's what we do. And we have a goal of $75 million, which will represent, if achieved, and we are tracking quite well, probably 62% of the Jimmy Fund's annual revenue. So the PMC is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation entirely dedicated to Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. So as we're fond of saying, there's a lot riding on us. And you, the public, last year over 350,000 people wrote checks on behalf of the cycling fundraisers of the Pan Mass Challenge. And yes, Grady, to your point, and you asked a lot, so I'm rambling on. On July 12th, we hit the $1 billion plateau of cumulative fundraising since 1980. So it has been really quite a ride, and we're all very grateful. But funding cancer research is a priority for a lot of people, and they found a real vehicle in the Pan Mass Challenge.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to see that the $1 billion, that was something that you and I had been chatting about, I think, like every year, for like since 2020. I think when we started having these conversations, we kept talking about like, oh, we're inching closer and closer. Is this going to be the year? So it's awesome to finally see that milestone be crossed. So congratulations. This year as well, you got the $75 million aim. Is that one of the biggest numbers that you've been looking to hit so far? Or is that something that's maybe been pared down because of COVID? Like, how does that track with other years that you've done the Pan Mass Challenge?
Last year, we gave a record $72 million. Every year is a record. We took a step back in COVID, but with what we call the reimagined event, which is to say a non-event, we raised $50 million, but the trajectory since COVID ended or has retreated, it has been strongly upward. So, I could see this coming as much as 10 years ago when we crossed the $500 million threshold. But again, it's really about riders signing up, all of whom are committed to raise varying levels of money depending upon what route they choose. And for our most popular routes, that is a $6,000 minimum, and yet the average person raises over $12,500, which was quite remarkable. You won't find that anywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing. Actually, do you mind telling me a little bit more about what that most popular route is? Kind of like roughly how long and where it takes you through. They all end in Provincetown, but like where does that one start specifically?
Well, it's really two.
Hmm.
The original route being starting in Sturbridge, but that's a longer ride than the ride that starts in Wellesley. But both rides meet in the town of Dighton, 70 miles from Sturbridge, 38 from Wellesley, and then rides together to the end of day one, which is at the Mass Maritime Academy in Bourne on the canal. On day two, those that choose it, and about 4,600 did, ride to Provincetown. Then there are as much as 1,500 people on different routes on Sunday. And there's a lot of mixing and matching. So, but without getting into all of it, those are the popular routes, the 2 day rides to Provincetown. And, you know, it, riding Cape Cod in summertime is a glory ride. And to be able to get the support we do is to be able to enjoy it as a cyclist, knowing that, of course, we're sharing roads with cars, and but we're pretty well advertised. We have tremendous police support, and we do start pretty early in the morning, with the bulk of us probably being done by 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
Hmm. Now, do you still ride yourself? Can you tell us a little bit more about your personal experience with cycling in general, how you got into it, and what your kind of history with the Pan Mass Challenge is from a rider's standpoint?
I created this having lost my mother, uncle, and cousin to cancer in my early 20s. You might guess after 45 years, I'm older than that. But about the time I was sort of a northern New England kid, a backpacker, and a rock climber. But about the mid 70s, I got into cycling, and I started riding from my home in Newton to Provincetown to catch the 3:30 ferry back to Boston. And I thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. There's something here. And I was kind of dovetailing some primary lessons in my life about who my mother was, about giving back, about the serendipitous nature of kindness of strangers. And I wanted to create an event that had this give and take between rider and volunteers. Yet I recognized that I had to really maintain their health, or they weren't going to come back again. So fortunately, we grew pretty organically, but in very small increments through the 80s. But about the 90s, it really started hitting another level uh, as biking grew, from Greg LeMond to Lance Armstrong to the Tour de France coming to America, in terms of consciousness, in terms of biking becoming the new golf. Uh, PMC was riding the curl of the wave. I have ridden all 45 years, Sturbridge to Provincetown. Can't say it's getting easier, but I am happy to be amongst the crowd, and I ride and fundraise like everybody else.
All right, awesome. Now, as well, this was before the advent of the internet. So, was this just word of mouth that you think that the success is from? What do you think the success of this program has been attributable to? Why do you think it's stuck all these years and
I
only
just
grown?
listed a few. I did list a few, but you're right.
Go
Before the night, I mean, I'd go to the post office 3 times a day, hoping somebody was registering for my event in June. Now, we open registration in January. We have 5,000 people registered in 3 weeks in winter time. So, in that way, the internet has been, for all event programming, has been a remarkable asset to the fundraising world, the event programming world, for those of us who are managing costs and trying to get our arms around who's actually participating. And quite frankly, all backed up with a credit card like any other business. As you know, we're staging a state-of-the-art cycling weekend, but with a higher calling. So yes, I mean, that is certainly one reason we grew modestly in the 80s. I could also say that, I had no corporate underwriting in that era. I mean, no money. And, so we were probably, you know, in the first year, we probably gave 70 cents on the dollar. Then by 19 we were giving 90 cents on the dollar. And for the last 18 consecutive years, we are giving 100% of every rider raised dollar to the Dana-Farber. And that is a powerful motivator for individuals to aggressively fundraise and for donors to open up their pocketbooks and their hearts. And what started as a $5 and $10 check is quite frankly a $500 and $1,000 check now. So it all came in time. Technology was a big part of it for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing growth over the years and fantastic you can do the 100%. Now, as well, while I still have you, I kind of wanted to ask about like how cycling has been in general as an industry, as a sport as of late. You've been involved for so long, and you kind of mentioned like, oh, Pan Mass is one of the ways that like the community is very embracing, but that's not always the case. It seems like cyclists are competing with cars a lot more lately. Do you think this is an opportunity to kind of highlight the importance of cycling from health benefits, from transportation? You yourself got the idea from being a cyclist, just using it for regular transport. What do you think the state of cycling is in terms of infrastructure as of late, especially with all the talk of green transportation and things like that?
Well, you're asking multiple questions, so let me take it one at a time.
Sure.
In terms of the attraction of the sport,
Hmm.
I don't care if you played field hockey, basketball, hockey, football. When you get out of organized athletics, you're likely going to do running, cycling, but cycling turns out to be the kind of sport you can do day in, day out without beating yourself up. It's got great cardio workout. It doesn't beat up your skeletal structure. It has a sociability, a teamwork aspect to it, a speed, a travel element to it. It captured me, and I thought I was pretty typical of a lot of people who were. It also turns out, of course, to be the sport of rehab. All those young jocks who got injured one way or another, they had knees and shoulders and everything else, they were going to find themselves on a bike, indoors or out. So that's a I would say it's a critical part of the success of how cycling has grown in this country. It's just a wonderful sport to age with. Plus, what happened with the bikes themselves. I mean, you just can't compare a bike of a 2020 bike with a 1970 bike. It's like something out of the Museum of Natural History. So all of that made it easier for someone to achieve a certain modicum of success with a very energy efficient bike. In terms of the negatives, I mean, we could make a lot of comments, and I think it's pretty obvious as bikers and and motorists compete for the same space. I think everybody can kind of figure out, unless you're very rich, the future of city living is either going to be public transportation, walking, running, cycling, and much more communal. And I believe that will eventually be accommodated. You see it in every city. Doesn't mean that everybody loves it. When I lived in the city, I commuted by bike, and I have to admit, I felt like a superior creature because I could get to where I was going, as opposed to sitting in traffic, have a workout, get a shower where I was working, and really be more calm about starting my day and finishing my day. But I would say to you, the biggest negative that's ever happened, you could talk about road rage. You could talk about the size of the cars. You could talk about general cowboy attitudes. You could talk about alcohol. But texting takes it all. And it's an unfortunate setback. Um, I feel if you're texting and driving, the penalty should be pretty severe because that's often the case of a cycling accident and or fatality. It's just the carelessness. But when you're driving 2 tons or more at 50 miles an hour, the biker always loses, and it's not right. And we'd better be a better world if that were observed.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, we've been seeing a lot of uptick in accidents between pedestrians and cyclists and motor vehicles in the past few years, and with a dip in COVID, but that's for unrelated reasons. But yeah, it is certainly a changing world. So as we're kind of seeing the different infrastructure changes and roadways and public investment into transit, it's certainly interesting to see kind of that cycling is, yeah, probably the more permanent of these things. Billy, we're about coming up on
I
time,
would,
but
I have, Grady, I have to add to that,
sure.
however, that you could make the same comment about the popularity of pickleball. So that that you have more adults going into the hospital because more people are doing the activity. So
Yes.
statistics, it depends what you look. Are there a greater percentage of bike accidents? I couldn't answer. Are there more on car? Probably. But that doesn't mean overall it's not safe. There's risk
Oh,
in
yeah.
life, that is for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, it's something that's just one of those things that, unfortunately, it seems to tie with the texting and driving as we get smaller and smaller computers that we can keep in our pockets. But yeah, thank you so much. It is interesting to see. We've had a lot of conversations, especially in Sandwich, about multimodal trails and more spaces, dedicated bike lanes and whatnot. And especially as we have the Cape Cod Canal bridges, there's been a lot of conversations about having how will those look. And I mean, like for Pan Mass Challenge and stuff, that's a direct impact. But having like a separate section entirely for bikes as opposed to having to travel along the roadways. Stuff like that, I assume, is what you'd like to see more of as we move forward with all of our infrastructure, not just the bridges.
Well, look, our event is unusual and we have strong support by the Army Corps of Engineer, but basically between 4:30 in the morning and 6 o'clock, they close a lane for us to get over. And we are well down the Cape before Cape Cod wakes up. Um, and that's all in everybody's best interest. In terms of, you know, cycling awareness or advocacy and or road planning, I think we've seen, I'm down the Cape now. I've got a house on the Cape, that, the Cape Cod Rail Trail is just a mega hit.
Oh, yeah.
It is used by all ages. Kids are learning how to ride a bike. It's safe for the family. Rather than being on the streets. And they built sandwich stores and bike stores along the route. It's all good. I see it as nothing but good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I grew up in East Ham, and I think I would probably spend most of my summer days on the Cape Cod Rail Trail, actually moving from place to place, going up through Wellfleet and all the way down to grab some ice cream in Orleans. So it's great to see those kinds of things, and hopefully we can see more soon as we're expanding it out. That is about all the time that we had, but is there anything else we wanted to highlight for our listeners about the Pan Mass Challenge, where people can learn more, or just some other stuff you're excited about for this year?
Well, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say to your audience, go to our website, pmc.org, hit that red button, make a donation. You likely know somebody who's participating. If you don't, you can donate to me or just make a general donation. At age 73, it's not getting any easier for me. But support the cause. That which is done at Dana-Farber is exported to the world. So everybody benefits, and it's a healthy event. It's a positive event. And we're on to the second billion, which we expect to achieve in like 10 to 13 years.
All right, awesome. Congratulations again on that first major milestone, Billy, and hopefully we'll have you back on again for that second billion sometime soon. But in the meantime, I will let you go. Congratulations and good luck with the event this weekend.
From your mouth to God's ears, Grady. Thank you very much.
I'm Grady Collane in the CapeCod.com News Center.